Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Everybody, hope everyone is having a wonderful Friday. Shout out to Sister Rabina who's saying that she cannot hear anything. I don't know what is going on with these videos, or what's going on with YouTube, or what's going on with Facebook for that matter. But all of a sudden, information and sound is being muted for some reason. And I am currently in a dispute with them in regards to the actual rights to the music. So, in any event, we can talk about comedy legends all day long, and I can tell you about some of the comedians who have been out there. I want to give a shout out to a recent loss in the comedy community. That would be Paul Mooney, originally from Louisiana. Paul Mooney is considered one of the OGs in the Muslim comedy game, particularly amongst African American comedians. He was a longtime writer, collaborator with Richard Pryor, head writer for the Richard Pryor Show, the short-lived Richard Pryor Show. If you ever want to see some amazing Richard Pryor stuff, I can never play it on YouTube or Facebook for that matter, because all this stuff, it seems like they have an algorithm, and Warner Brothers and NBC, they own all of this classic material from these artists, which I'm sure if the artists knew, they'd be turned over in their graves. That's not the point. The point is you sign a paperwork and people own your material. They own your masters. So I can't bark on that, but big shout out to Paul Mooney, who early on in my career, I really enjoyed some of his stuff. His album that he put out called Race was an amazing album. Very funny, very funny. Then you meet these people, and then you meet people, and you say, okay, well, this is how people are rolling and things like that. But a loss is a loss anyway. And when you have a loss in the comedy community, it's really interesting because comedians watch other comedians. And what I mean is, it's not necessarily the idea is steel sharpen steel, but we look to one another in terms of how we build community at certain stages of our lives and certain stages of our careers. Paul Mooney was one of those guys who went all the way back to, again, Richard Pryor, writing on Sanford and Son. So he's out of that period. A lot of people don't realize, man, Paul Mooney had been around a while. He died. He passed away evidently of a heart attack, 79 years old. I would encourage everybody, if you get a chance, go check out some of his material. Paul Mooney, like I said, a comedy OG. From back in the day, he's been done a lot of things. Of course, a lot of people came into contact with Mooney on the Chappelle Show, Black Nostradamus, that famous bit about Wayne Brady and Brian Gumbel and stuff like that. So it was a fun bit. It was a fun bit. But again, a loss is a loss, and particularly when talking about not just comedians but artists. His work on In Living Color, Homie Don't Play That. He had some iconic bits, and you got to give him credit for that because, along with some of the other comedians I'm going to speak about today, and I'm going to do it in a rapid succession, if you will. These guys were not working with the best of intentions from Hollywood. As having artistic integrity is one thing, but managerial integrity is something different. And so a lot of you guys, they banged their head for years up against issues in Hollywood about, representation, realistic representation of African American life, intellect, intelligence. And, some of the things they came out, they were great stuff. I remember seeing Paul Mooney in one of his he had one role. I remember he was in the La Bamba movie. I think he played Sam Cooke in La Bamba, and then he played in Richard Pryor's Which Way Is Up. So before we get started, let me apologize for the sound. I don't know what the sound is. I'm getting a little discouraged with the sound. I think I'm gonna have to start putting it in the actual file and then loading it in, because it's just way too erratic and undependable. So that said, let me welcome people to the show. First up, we have our sister all the way from the UK, Sister Rabina. How are you, Sister Rabina? Got your text. I'm looking at it. I want to send you this thing that somebody sent me about. It says, is Israel that bad? I think you might enjoy it, actually. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a successful Ramadan. Good to have you back on the platform, my dear sister. And you keep that information coming. You keep that information coming for us. I'm gonna definitely check it out. But I have something to send you as well. Also, big shout out to our ambassador from Canada. That'd be Altaf Rashid. He is here every day, on the day, checking, not even checking passports, not asking about where your mom and dad live. He ain't doing immigration. He's just here to make sure the show comes off correctly, and we check all the boxes. We check all the boxes on the Canadian side of the border. We want to make sure that the Shout Out Show has proper conversion coming into Canada. Altaf wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Next up, we have my main man, Adam Khan. Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brother, I was doing a remix for you. Good to see you on the show, man. And, we're going to have to get off show line and catch up. I think we're moving towards that. We're fast moving towards 400 shows. It's going to be a quiet 400 shows, man. I'm here to tell you. Maybe it's because it happened so close to Mother's Day, our big Mother's Day show, of which we've had two. I said like we've had it 15 years in a row. We've had two Mother's Day shows, and they were artistic, collaborative disasters, but for the spirit, they were good, and we enjoyed them. So let me make sure I give my man Adam a shout out. And we have other people that are coming on the show. Yeah, of course, I got my brother coming on the show, my main man, JT. Johnny L. Thomas, JT is one of the, he's a collaborator on the show. And I didn't introduce myself. Thank you, Sultan. I introduced myself. I do this so much. In case you guys didn't know, I'm Preacher Moss. I'm the host of the SOS and Shout Out Show. I just went right into talking. I guess I was a little, off track, if I may add. I was a little off track because the George Carlin bit that I had, I really, really enjoyed this bit. I was excited, to get this bit and cue it up for everybody. But I mean, he's a funny guy. And if you have any chance or some spare time, peep some of George Carlin stuff. I'm going to give you a list of some comedians that you should check out. They don't get shouted out as much as they used to because, they're old timers. And sometimes young timers don't do a good job. Young heads don't do a good job of not so much respecting old heads. You're going to do that, but bigging them up. You're standing on their shoulders in some regards. So I think you have to do that. So JT, glad you can make the show. And I'm laughing about JT because JT has been with me on a lot of gigs. There's the infamous David Sanborn gig where I got fired that night. The train gig. I mean, it's so many gigs we've been on, brothers and sisters. And he knows about watching comedians. So that whole idea about comedy and comedy communities, he's been there. I mean, he was there at the beginning for Allah Made Me Funny. Just so we know. He was the guy I talked to about it. It's like, hey, I have this great idea. In fact, the call for the first logo for Allah Made Me Funny happened at his house in Milwaukee. I remember showing it to him. JT, what do you think? So it goes back, and he saw me before Allah Made Me Funny, which is really important too. So that goes back to a guy watching me do comedy all the way back to 1992. So, just a little something there. Sister Rabina said something. In some cases, these corporations even own your name. Example, Halston, John Go. Yeah. One of my guys, he's a comedy legend, Latino comedian. He's a little bit older than me. His name is George Lopez. And I give George a lot of credit. And JT knows this too. I give a lot of credit to George Lopez because when George Lopez came to Milwaukee, he worked at a club called the Comedy Cafe, owned by a brother named JD. Big ups to JD. But, he came to the Comedy Cafe. He was not the national act that he was. He wasn't the national act that he is now with the TV shows. He was a club comic. He was getting booked around the country, and he would do these bits about Taco Bell and stuff like that. And the bits weren't bad, but they weren't necessarily developed. And my job back then, when I was watching comedians, one of the ways I got on with comedians sometimes, like I would watch people's act. Anybody who knows me knows that when I watch comedy, a lot of times I don't laugh. And sometimes people get really, really insecure. Like, why didn't you laugh? Why aren't you laughing? I'm like, dude, you asked me to watch your act, not laugh at your act. I watch your act. I make notes. He was one of the first people that got it. Him and Daryl Hammond, formerly of Saturday Night Live, got it. And I was breaking his act down, and he had amazing blocking. Like on a small stage, he could do amazing blocking where he could give you a look and people just bust out laughing. But he didn't know that he had this amazing power of blocking. And we talked about jokes and where a joke was delivered on stage. And lo and behold, we became friends. And he was very instrumental, largely instrumental, if you will, for me getting out of Milwaukee, because Milwaukee had a lot of comedians, Frank Caliendo, Eric O'Shea, but for some reason, the African American comedians in Milwaukee we never got out. We rarely got out. Like I was one of the few that left. I was like, I'm going west. A lot of the comedians, very talented comedians. I'm gonna shout them out. Chris Barnes, Marlon Hill, Steve Brown, Steve Dickerson. We had a lot of funny guys. In fact, one of my mentor comedians, you can't say he's a Milwaukee comedy legend. His name was C. Cardell Willis, who gave me my first ever opportunity to go on stage back in 1988. I was 17 years old. I always tell people that I was too young to actually go in a club because I was too young. So I would have to wait outside this place called Wimpy Hunt's Club. I have to wait in the alley, and they would hold the door open. I have to listen for my name, and then I would run in. And I'll never forget C. Cardell Willis's intro, because it was humbling, but he let me know in my own space, if you will. Don't get in your own head, young man. You're going to have to do work. His intro for me was, ladies and gentlemen, we got a boy from Washington, D.C. Hell, he says he's funny. I don't know. Get up here, boy. That was my intro. And I'm a 17-year-old kid. I'm getting in front of, and these weren't regular white people I was getting in front of. These were Midwestern white people that had been drinking at least 2 hours before I came on. And here I am trying to talk about police brutality. It did not go well, but it went. But George Lopez gets me out to LA, and many of you know I wound up writing on the first season of George Lopez show. I had other opportunities. I had a lot of opportunities, and he was very supportive when I left Hollywood. And I haven't said this enough. He was very supportive when I left Hollywood, because I had an opportunity to continue writing for his stand-up when he had his show, which was really lucrative. I could have been just writing for his show for the next, his stand-up, not the actual show. And I probably would have wound up back on the show as a writer. But I had this calling. I had this experience, and something in my heart after 9/11 said, you need to start Allah Made Me Funny. Our people need to laugh. And that was the state of it, because a lot of I didn't really want to do Allah Made Me Funny from the beginning. I didn't want to do it because I felt like it was going to be a lot of work. And in the end, I felt like people were going to turn on me. I was wrong. I was half wrong. It was a lot of work, but the people didn't turn on me. And all that is due to a lot of the presence and his mercy that we could come together and have something that's meaningful, valuable in terms of entertainment and levity, just levity. So big shout out to George Lopez. There was a series of Latino legendary comics. There was, Gil Gerardo had his show before George, but Gil Gerardo passed away relatively young. Paul Rodriguez had AKA Pablo, and then George Lopez had, of course, it wasn't a George Lopez show. It was actually called George Lopez, no George Lopez show. So much the same as me talking about this stuff about algorithms being taking away our ability to show this material. Like I couldn't use any of Lopez's material. So what I'm going to do is ask that he actually come on the show as a favor. I think that'll be pretty cool. Hey, Ree's on the show. Hey, Ree. Hello, fam. Be home late tonight. Travel safe, Sister Ree. Still checking in from the road. I hope you're not driving and texting. I hope that Derek and Jawad are taking care of that. But thank you so much, Sister Ree. And we miss you. And you know what, Adam Khan? Yes, you miss Bernie Mac. You know what? I miss Bernie Mac. Richard Jeni, I met him once. I met Bernie Mac in two situations. I told you I was a Milwaukee comic. That's the way we say it in the business in the Midwest. Whatever city you're from, Milwaukee comic, Chicago comic, Detroit comic. That's where you break it out. New York City comic, Atlanta comic, whatever. That's the way we do stupid stuff like that. Bernie Mac saw me at a spot at a comedy competition. And I tried to do my comedy competition. I tried to do it clean. And I made it through the first round. And I think of second round, but third round I lost. And I see a guy standing in the corner. He was actually pretty tall. Bernie Mac was not a little guy. He's actually pretty tall and very distinct voice. He's like, "You're a pretty funny guy." I'm tell you a little something. He was a pretty funny guy. And what was nice is that he recognized that I really put a lot of work into my writing. At that point, I want to say my stage performance wasn't as good. It wasn't as polished or as advanced as it is now. I mean, I could get up and I literally, in this Islamic state of mind, literally, I would get a microphone and just look down at the stage like I'm trying to be humble and tell jokes at the same time. Dumb. People laughing at my head, brothers and sisters. And I was in Chicago and I didn't put my head down. And this is why I thought somebody's going to throw something at me on stage. And this guy comes up and he said his name is Bernie Mac and da-da-da. And it was very cool. And then when I finally went to Hollywood and I got on the Lopez show and I was down at, I think it was the Hollywood Improv. Yeah, it was Hollywood Improv. I came out and I saw him and I don't know what he was doing, if he was meeting somebody. And he was like, "Pitch him up, give me some love." give me some writer love. And I thought it was the funniest thing, just to be hanging out with him, because he was a legend, And but these are people that shape stuff, You've heard me talk about Dick Gregory. We've done a whole show on Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory was my comedy mentor, largely responsible for me even staying in comedy because I was going to quit during the Def Jam years. But it tells you how important it is to have an OG comedian, because there were no OG Muslim comedians when I was coming up, brothers and sisters. There were none. And now I'm the OG Muslim comedian. I'm the OG Muslim comedian. Depends on who you ask. But my mother connected me with Mr. Dick Gregory, and he gave me a grounding and a chewing out that I will never, ever, ever forget. But it was meant to toughen you up. It was meant to make you feel good about all these things that were going to happen to you that were probably going to be pretty negative, but it was part of a process. I mean, I remember the first time I tried to introduce myself to the immigrant Muslim community. It was in New Jersey. I think Azhar Zaman was doing a show and I was going to open for him. And I'm like, it's your show, but I want to open so I can get a feel for the jokes I'm going to tell. And I'll never forget, man. There was an old lady in the corner and she kept looking at me and I'm like, see, this is beautiful. Indigenous Muslim, Black Muslim, immigrant Muslims coming together. And she kept waving me over. I mean, she was an elderly sister, auntie, as we say. I said, this auntie is just showing me love. I'm looking at her like, none of y'all show me love like this auntie right here. And I got over there and I'm like, assalamu alaikum. Look, I'm working on my salams to make it sound like official, like heart and love, like almost like assalamu alaikum. I'm getting it. And I get over there, I don't even get the whole salam out. I'm like, assalam. And you know what she did? She put her teacup, like, get me some tea, Negro. Scratch your salams. I want chai. And I was like, and here's the funny, I didn't know about chai back then. Now I'm about to go off like, lady, I'm a professional working comedian. And I remember something, man, what Muhammad said to me about, listen, you have to humble yourself in this situation. I'm like, okay. I'm going to humble myself. I'm going to get this lady some tea. And I got the tea, but I didn't know about chai. She thought I was supposed to, she was like, what's in it? I was like, tea. It's tea, lady. I don't know about chai. So she wanted milk. I was like, get the milk yourself, old lady. I'm had enough. So I go on stage, brothers and sisters. I'm doing okay. And the lady can't make the connection between the black guy that gave her the tea with no milk in it and the black guy on stage. And I'm going through my set and I'm killing it. And all I can see is this little old, I think Indian lady, Pakistani lady, one of the two, maybe both. Hell, I don't know. All I can see is her with her cup going like, "Get me more tea, get me more tea." So of course she became a very painful part of the set, and I don't think she knew it because she didn't speak English. So that made it that much more fun. But I think a lot of times, man, when you learn you learn American profanity from Dick Gregory. Well, I'm gonna tell you something, Rabina. Early on, he was a clean comic. That's number one. When he got older, he had some choice words. But you said you learned profanity from him. I'm gonna tell you something. He caught me a couple times. I relearned profanity from him. Mr. Gregory was very much about what are you doing in terms of purposeful action. So we were doing a show at Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas, as a matter of fact, and it was a conference of Black leadership organizations from like the Big 12 sports conference. So all these people, and I started doing my bit and da da da, and I wound up walking a few people. Like they did not like me because I was just talking. I'm like, yo, we're talking about Black leadership, and they just wanted to party. They didn't want to talk about Black leadership at all. And Mr. Gregory goes up, he kills it. Like he commands respect right off the back. I'm trying to remember the first thing. He says, he's standing, and I'm realizing people don't really know exactly who he is. Like these are young kids. I mean, you're kind of rolling the dice thinking there's some really studious kids there who've done their history. But the bio was so limited that they gave me. I was like, Mr. Gregory, is this cool? He was like, man, I don't need a bio. And he says it like real, it wasn't brag. And he was like, I don't need no bio. He goes, I need to introduce these Negroes to who I am in 8 seats. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be on. And he goes up and basically tells them, y'all don't know about Black leadership. You don't know about the Black movement. You don't know about civil rights. Sit down, shut up. I'm going to teach you for the next hour. And that was it. That was his set. And I loved it. I loved that, man. I was like, phew. To the point that people who had kind of like booed me a little bit didn't like me. They actually came up and apologized to me after the show. They were like, we didn't know it was going to be that kind of show. And they appreciated it. And that was heartening. That was really heartening. But, some of the comedians that I love, unfortunately, I was watching a clip of Eddie Murphy on Delirious today. And I couldn't put Delirious on because it's got a bunch of profanity. But I'm going to have to talk to Sister Satana, my consultant producer, about that. We're a show, but we're a grown-up show. Sometimes language is going to happen on the show. I don't want to be like, oh, it's a Muslim show. I am Muslim. I'll pick parts that, it's going to be some language. I tell Muslims, don't act like you ain't heard this language before or you haven't used this language before. The reason why you appalled, because you probably done used it a couple of times. But he has a bit which, this is how I knew Eddie Murphy was a star, okay? Funny story, too. Funny story, side story. I'm in Milwaukee. I'm like, I think I'm a junior in college, right? I'm a junior in college. I finished some really, really bad gig at a frat house. But I'm hungry. Like somebody ate my food. Like I bought a sandwich to the thing. I picked up a sandwich on the way. I sat the sandwich down. Some drunk grabbed my sandwich, ate my sandwich. So I don't have any food. I'm like fasting before I'm Muslim, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna go to IHOP because the IHOP was right across the street from my dorm. I stayed at Mashuda Hall on West Wisconsin Avenue. I think it was like maybe 20th in Wisconsin or whatever, 21st Wisconsin. Anyway, I walk into the is it IHOP? Yeah, it was IHOP. You didn't have Denny's back then. I walk into the IHOP and I'm like, man, I just want to eat my food. And you know how you eat food and you're just so hungry? You order with your head down. You don't even look up. You don't even look at the menu. You know what you want. The lady gives it to you. So I look up and there's freaking Eddie Murphy in the IHOP. In the IHOP. I'm like, you're a millionaire. What are you doing in the IHOP? Like, this is Eddie Murphy in the IHOP. And I was so intimidated. I was like, you know, I thought about why he might be in an IHOP. And I'm like, because he's a humble dude. The same thing I just told you about having a sandwich and somebody stealing. He used to perform. Look at JT. JT knows what I'm talking about. Not the one on Capitol, JT. IHOP on 20th and Capitol? No, it was on Marquette campus. All right, we'll talk about it later. In any event. Oh, thanks, Mom. And you're pretty funny too. Stop telling people that your sister sat on you, though. Okay? Write some new material. Okay, JT hit it right here. IHOP on 20th in Wisconsin. Yes. So I see Eddie Murphy working there. And the funny part was, I don't know if this makes any sense. I didn't really want to disturb him while he was eating, because I know what that feeling is when you finish a gig. And I'm like, it doesn't matter how much money he has, it tells you where it comes from. Like, it tells you where it comes from. I'm like, he's a real comic. This guy is buying a meal at IHOP, but there's a time where, and I tell people this, there's a time where I perform for food. A person will give you $25 in food. There was a bad hotel off of, like, in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, is down by the old Brewer Stadium. It was a group of hotels, and you would work 2 nights. You would do 2 shows a night. Hear me now. You do 2 shows a night, Friday and Saturday. Your pay was $25, and they gave you a meal each night. And I'm watching them eat at IHOP, and I'm like, probably same people that booked me for this gig booked it as well. But I think that's the thing, man. But we talked about Paul Mooney. Comedian you guys should really check out. I'm going to tell Sister Rabina, do your homework. I want you to check out Mort Saul, probably one of the most intellectual guys. He was great at what he did. Extreme. I mean, we talk about Lenny Bruce, but Mort Saul was amazing at what he did. Richard Pryor, Nipsey Russell, Pigmeat Markham, and also research. And I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do a show on Burt Williams, inshallah. I actually went and bought a book about Burt Williams because he was such an intriguing entity who actually sets the table for Black comedy moving forward. All these comedians, we talk about Pryor and Red Fox and all of it, but you know what? Nobody talks about Burt Williams. No one talks about Burt Williams, so we're going to give him some love. Okay, you said I have a very posh accent, so when I do use profanity, it's known as the Queen's Speech. Okay, Sister Rabina. All right. So look, we're at that time, brothers and sisters. Adam Kahn says, Moms Mabley. Yes. You know, I'm a Moms Mabley fan, Adam. I grew up with Moms Mabley. My grandfather didn't like her, but I loved her, my family. I don't know how my grandfather didn't like Moms Mabley, but had all of her albums. So I think that was my grandmother. Like, well, then that's just you. I'm going to spend my money on Moms Mabley. But I used to actually do a little Moms Mabley. You know who actually is, I don't know if you remember our guest, Sylvia Traymore. But Sylvia Traymore is actually doing a one-man show about Moms Mabley. It's going to be at the Howard Theater. I think it's going up pretty soon. I'm going to call her. Maybe we can get her on to talk about that. But I will literally, when I find out the particulars of that show, I'm going to be there. I don't care if we're going to do the shout out show from Howard Theater. I'm going to be there because A, nobody else could do this other than, of course, Sylvia Traymore. And B, with the hat, the little costume, she looks like Moms Mabley. Forget about I know the voice, because she's a master impressionist. She looks like Moms Mabley, which is eerie. I like it though, but it's eerie. So look, I'm going to let everybody get out of here for the weekend. I apologize again for not having that video right. I will double check it next time. I won't leave it to the nasty gens at nasty gens, nasty gens. Don't you think I'm a nasty gen? All right. That was just for you, Sultana. I'm gonna give a shout out. I'm gonna give a shout out to YouTube because you're garbage, and a shout out to Facebook too. Let's see if you take that off. I don't like any of you, and I hope your algorithms break and all of your advertising dollars go to poor people around the world, and you can't get it back, and you get taxed on it. That's what I hope. Okay, listen. On that note, brothers and sisters, let's move to our sponsors. I see Satana like, please, before we get pulled off the air, move to the sponsors. I see you. I want to give a shout out to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Make sure you support the people who support us. That's run by Sister Maxine Cade. If you don't want to go to the website, because some people have problems going to the website, Mary Moss, you can call 1-800-679-3175. Again, that's 1-800-679-3175. And let's go to the educators, the educator component of the Shout Out Show. That would be Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Hey, Adam, if you're trying to get that information, man, you're trying to expand your Islamic institution, your Islamic foundation, my brother, take a look at Bayan. I encourage everybody to take a look at Bayan. You know, whether you're looking at leadership development, Islamic leadership, Islamic studies, if you're looking at possibly being a chaplain, try to get an MDiv. Myself, I got the Master of Arts in, of course, Islamic education. This, brothers and sisters, this is a great opportunity to do it. Now, it took me a little while to get mine, but I got it. And I'm saying, if I can get it with everything I have to do and everything I deal with, I know that you can get in, probably can get it faster than I can. They have opportunities there. They have scholarships. They have grants. You know, before you say no, say yeah. Say yeah to getting the information. So look, we're going to get out of here. Unfortunately, thank you, Facebook. We can't use our normal closing because Facebook is the devil. So we have to go out on this really thing. We're going to go out on an ad. I apologize in advance. I want to thank everybody who's on the show. I want to thank Mary Moss, Mama Son. Change your name from Mary Moss to Mama Son. My little brother, JT. My sister and head research director, that would be Sister Rabina Chaudhry Khan, my main man, Adam Khan. So you two related? You got Rabina, Akram Chaudhry Khan, and Adam Khan. I'm just saying. And my main man, Altaf. And Ree and Derek and Juan, y'all be careful on that road coming back down to Texas, all right? So Sister Satana, take us out of here. You know why? Because we can't have our normal thing. Thank you, Facebook. We're just going to go ahead and leave peacefully. Shout out to everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Saturday spotlight will be Gil Scott Heron. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Preacher Moss, I'm out. Yo, assalamu alaikum. I'm Preacher Moss, comedian extraordinaire, but I like to add a new title to my name. I'm Professor Preacher Moss. You know why? Because I just graduated. Wait a minute. Let me get this out of here. This is it. Okay. I'm Professor Preacher Moss, and it's come through the courtesy and the blessing of the Muhammad Ali Scholarship, which came through Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Now, listen, I know a lot of you people are thinking, can I do it? Yes, you can do it. This is the part where I know I'm supposed to say it's easy. It's not easy. Listen, it was easy to get this degree. Trump will be a mufti. I digress. Listen, though, for you brothers and sisters that are interested, go to bayanonline.org, and you could be like me. Put yourself in the picture for Islamic education. Wait a minute, there's a picture right there. Sound like everybody. Take care. Preach them all.